here, on the very rim of known space, justice is a long way away.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie Podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian, and joining us always is your co-host, Julie.
Hello from the Midwest of the U.S., where we have two more national conventions than I'd care to have.
I'll be really happy when they're over. That dates us a little bit, and I try not to date these, but I'll be very happy when they're... It is almost August 2024 as we record this one, my friends. Also joining us is your co-host, Thorsten.
Hello, and I'm dying from heat here.
It's
like Southeast Asia.
Sorry, man. Your co-host, Jacob.
Player has died from hypothermia.
And your co-host, David.
I was trying to sit down in this office chair, but instead I have accidentally disassembled it. Whoops.
My friends, we have a guest that we don't know where Spaz is. I hope he's okay. There are wildfires happening in his neck of the woods, but last I heard they weren't directly affecting him, so we're not sure what's going on, but hopefully he's okay, and hopefully he'll be able to join us when he can. Joining us this week from Seattle, Daniel Fedor, right?
Yes.
Fedor. Yay! Correct. Oh, thank God. Of Blue Puddle Games to talk about Ostranauts, the upcoming space cowboyish, firefly-ish, adventure space. It's a complex thing you've made, sir.
It's a thing.
My goodness, it is a thing.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Not a minute in, and we already have an understatement.
Agree.
Well, thank you for coming. So, friends, if you're not aware what Ostranauts is, how long has it been in early access? A few years now, right?
Yeah, I want to say 2019. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
2020.
2020.
So 4 years.
Time is a blur.
Yeah, especially after 2020. Like, what's going on? So about 4 years. It's a top-down. Well, it's not entirely top-down because when you're a ship, you're looking at panels. So it's not entirely top-down, but you're on foot.
I feel like it's better off we let the dev try to keep the selling.
That's probably a good idea.
The elevator pitch on this one because...
Yeah, you're right. I usually try and summarize it for the folks, but Daniel, if you wouldn't mind, giving the elevator pitch of your game, please.
I can try. I've been trying to craft this phrase for a long time, and I still don't know if I can. But yeah, it is top down. It's the way I try and describe it is I wanted a procedural Firefly episode generator after the series ended. So it's kind of an engine that'll generate Firefly like story bits. And you kind of play it top down. It's in real time with pause. But it does have sort of first person control panels. So you're pushing the buttons yourself. And it also has like social networking, we call it social combat, but like the people you know and their relationships to you are supposed to matter. And yeah, it's a playground, a sandbox RPG that I'm building largely because I want to play in it.
That's a really great way to put it. I really did glom onto the Firefly-esque vibe of the whole thing, which is excellent, by the way.
Yes, I miss it dearly.
As do I caught it late.
Everyone does.
I caught it late. I didn't watch it when it was on. I only started watching it when I saw the transcript of an Apache helicopter pilot quoting it as he was on a mission in Afghanistan. And I was like, really?
That's an interesting intro.
I know. I was like, oh, wow, I have to try this now. Of course, they fell in love with it. Yeah, so... you know what the sad thing about that is? Tangent number 2, 3. There were supposedly at least a couple Firefly games. Like, I think there have been at least 2 attempts at a Firefly MMO, and neither took off. Which is...
I do recall there being... Was there a mobile one also in development?
God, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so I think there have been at least 2 or 3 Firefly games that never quite took off, which is just a crime because, yeah, that's a fascinating universe. It's one solar system, but wow, it's a fascinating solar system. So Firefly is a great place to build from.
With a solar system, the thing I'm discovering is it's really hard to fill a planet or even indeed a space station completely so it feels like a full place. I made the same mistake when I made Neo Scavenger, thinking, oh, I'll just do Michigan instead of all of the North American continent. And even Michigan, like, I mean, a city within Michigan is already a monumental task to fill with content. So yeah, it can be pretty small and still feel like a full place.
Yeah. And from my limited playthrough, which is mostly on that first space station, it did feel pretty lively. Like there were quite a few people milling about, all feeling like they were doing their own thing. And
didn't get off the station, I take it?
I did for a little bit. Yeah, I docked with a ship and tore everything I could off of it that I could fit.
So far, that's a correct playthrough. Yeah,
that I could fit into my little tiny pod. And then I went back to the station and tried to find a place to sell the stuff I found, and saw that most of it was like $1, $2. Like, oh god, is this GameStop the future? What the hell is going on here?
I still remember being amazed because, like, you start with a decent chunk of debt, and you need to what is like 2,000 per cycle. I showed up to a place, looted it dry, and earned like $100.
Exactly.
There are tricks to get around that, but it's like one of the kind of guiding stars in the game is that if you play by the rules, you're basically going to get shafted. The rules are designed to bury you, and like you're better off trying to go into the gray areas of the game, like selling on the black market or stealing stuff, or because corporations have basically cornered the market on everything.
That sounds about right. That sounds accurate. That sounds like where we're going. I mean,
yeah. Cautionary tale, everybody. Cautionary tale, not blueprints.
Depressing, but fun
and accurate. That's, oh god, I'm laughing and crying. But I gotta talk to you about the place you start out with this game and its character generation, because it really felt like I've never played Traveler. But I played a game, a video game based on Traveler called Space that was made for the Apple in like 1979 and had kind of a similar thing where you could like screw yourself over in character creation. So I'm wondering,
a hallmark of the series.
I was wondering if Traveler was an inspiration at all for that sort of thing.
Definitely. Yeah. I actually, believe it or not, I haven't played a lot of Traveler. We did try and do a campaign when I was younger, and we only got so far because of the usual like antics of having teenage boys in close proximity and joking all the time. But I always loved the core book. I had the Mega Traveler GDW book, and there was another book they published called Fire, Fusion, and Steel. And I just loved how deep divey that was into all of how things work. Part of it was just, wow, all of this stuff has been codified. I bet I could probably do like a digital version because there's so many details to keep track of in an RPG like that. It's almost like too much for paper. But that's where the computer shines. I wonder if the computer could do it.
Okay, we've had a third buzzword here now because I'm a great Traveler fan and I've started actually with the little black books back then.
Oh wow! Yeah, I never got in that early.
But Fire, Fusion, and Steel was a great book, simply put.
Yeah, I even remember using it. I played a lot of Rifts back in the day, and like. It's a very fantasy, hand wavy type setting, in which anything is possible. But I enjoyed taking things from Rifts and then looking them up in Fire, Fusion, and Steel. I'm like, okay, this is how this plasma thrower would work. And then trying to kind of make rifts a little more mundane. I think that's kind of a hallmark of everything I do. I seem to take the mundanity of something like sci-fi and just ramp it up.
But some of us like getting lost in that mundanity. Some of us like love getting lost in.
I think there's a lot. I mean, it sounds weird to say this, but like mundanity can produce its own adventure.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes that mundanity is the enemy of your adventure, right? Like the antagonist is in this case like the corporations working against you, and your primary villain is to overcome that force. But sometimes, I don't know, doing a mundane thing in a game I wouldn't want to do in real life, but it's okay in a game for some reason. Like, I don't know why that's the case.
So people love that stuff. Like, people love farming in games. They don't want to do it in real life, but farming, fishing, like, I don't want to farm. I don't want to fish, but
chopping apart rocks with a pickaxe.
Yeah,
like
you give me any game with a fishing.
We worked so hard to escape from this.
Yeah. You give me any game with a fishing mini game. I'm all over it. Like I've only done fishing in real life once. I was bored off my butt, but put it in a video game like Fate or something. And I'm like, yep. Gotta get a fish. Get a fish. I don't get it.
Where does it come from? Who knows?
I don't know.
I mean,
psychology is a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
a confounding thing.
We've got to be honest here. Hard Space Shipbreaker, a game about dismantling ships and salvaging them, is also pretty mundane if you look hard enough.
Yeah,
that's true.
Another great touchstone game, and it actually came out before Ostranauts. Obviously it came out before Ostranauts, but I remember I was at PAX East for like the first Ostranauts presence at PAX, and Hard Space was already like up and running by that point. And I was like, holy crap, somebody made like a shipbuilding game. And it's Relic too. Like they did an amazing job at making it dripping with style and setting and narrative. Another great game.
It kind of has a similar like country and space vibe to your game a little bit.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the same kind of sci-fi inspirations were shared between Ostranauts and Shipbreaker. For sure the sort of alien universe where like corporations dominate everything and you have no chance of like becoming a significant person in that universe. I feel like that tone is very strong in Hard Space.
Oh, certainly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you get out of, does anyone know, can you actually get out of debt in Hard Space? Is that even possible?
I haven't.
Okay. Yeah. I never.
I mean, nominally, I think you can.
You can.
Oh, okay.
There's also the narrative, which came sort of after I did most of my playing. Like initially, it felt a little bit more like, I think was it in early access? Anyway, it felt like a story part came in after I did most of my playing, where I don't know if that story concludes before you could reasonably finish paying off your debt. But at the time I was playing, it just felt like, well, yes, this will happen eventually if I do enough ships.
In the chat, Luke says that you can get out of debt. So
confirmed.
Yay! That's good.
It takes some effort.
It takes a lot of effort. That game broke me at one point. I couldn't keep going with it. I don't remember what broke me about it, but something broke me. Sorry.
If I may,
apologies.
I would like to delve a little bit into the background of our developer here.
Okay.
My body is ready.
Okay.
Oh boy.
First, I want to find out how someone with a degree in physics and an interest in space power ends up a game developer. I want to hear about the story when you went to work for Turbine as an intern, because it's really funny. And I want to know where Blue Bottle comes from, because certainly it's not Blue Bottle coffee and it's not the Blue Bottle fly. So there you go. I have my first 3 questions.
Okay, well, let's try and tackle those in order, I guess. So physics, I got into physics because I thought naively that it would give me all of the answers to the universe. I thought, surely if I get a degree in physics, I'll know how everything works.
No,
Already
it
got
just
the
makes
an-
you.
Already
Spoiler
got, the
alert.
already got the answer to that. It's 42. Go ahead.
Yeah. As I
First of all-
discovered, not so much. More like the deeper you dive into a topic, the more questions that seem to come up. And we just have a pretty good handle on the way things work in aggregate, I guess. So anyway, I got a little disillusioned, I would say junior year, third year of university. Still finished the degree. But I think at that time I was starting to realize what really interested me was some of the more high concepts that I liked in science fiction. And those things were definitely not going to be possible in the near future. Although now that I say that, there are some things which have come to pass. So what do I know? But the other thing about physics is it's not a highly employable degree to have, which surprised me a little bit. I thought, surely somebody with a hard science background could get a job in any of these engineering firms. And maybe that's true, and I just did a terrible job looking, but it felt like at the time you were kind of looking at either continuing physics as like a master's and PhD and eventually like a professor type role, or writing books, or maybe if you were lucky, you'd find like an engineering firm or something that was looking for someone more theoretical, but the engineers really had the jobs. But I also love video games a ton, obviously. And around the time I was having these thoughts of, is physics the right way to go? I was just sort of naturally and organically playing and modding games a ton. And while doing that, teaching myself things like scripting and 3D modeling, animation, special effects. And I loved doing all of those things. And something around that time kind of reminded me, hey, there's people who do that for a job. You should go look that up. And I tried to get my foot in the door as a 3D artist, which, as I later discovered, especially at BioWare, I am nowhere near the caliber of 3D artists that apply for these jobs. But it took me, I want to say 6 years. So this was junior year of university. I started applying for games jobs, including to BioWare. I was rejected by BioWare. 6 years later, which is 2 years of university plus 4 years of working in IT as a web developer, I finally applied to BioWare again, and I got hired as a technical artist. And a technical artist, for those who don't know, is kind of like a liaison between the art team and the programming team. And it varies wildly from studio to studio, but in our case at BioWare, it was the person who makes the tools that artists and animators use to get their craft into the game. And a really specific example of that, to kind of pin it down, is like if the characters in the game are elven or dwarven or human, ideally they have all the same mesh for all characters so that one set of animations can run them all. But obviously the points of those faces are in different places depending on which fantasy race they are. So one of the tools I wrote was basically letting the artist do like a generic head, and then in the case of an elf, they could pull the ears up, and they could pull the nose out for a dwarf, and they could do various things for other characters. And then this tool would say, okay, well, do whatever you're going to do for the animation, but if it's an elf, stretch the ears the amount that the artist did. So really behind the scenes kind of stuff, but it was something I was good at because I was fairly technical minded, but also dabbled a lot in art. And so few people were available to do that job at the time that was kind of how I chanced into a job. So yeah, that's maybe the longish way that I got into game dev from physics. I think for anyone who is in physics or considering it, the one thing I did gain from that, which serves me every day now, is like understanding systems and how to describe them with numbers. Like I definitely would go back and learn physics again if I had a second shot. I feel like it served me well. It's just at the time I was disillusioned by it. And Turbine, when was that? Somewhere between my first application to BioWare and my last application to BioWare, I applied to Turbine because they were also working on a couple MMOs at the time that I wanted to be a part of. And were they doing the Matrix one? Or was that somebody else?
I think that was them.
And they were also doing another one too, weren't they? This was like 2002-ish.
It wasn't Warhammer, was it? No. There were so many MMOs flowing out.
I can't remember anymore, but
wasn't Dark Age?
I remember thinking at the time, wow, they're doing like all the cool stuff, like science fiction, fantasy, all of the genres I liked. And the only job that they were hiring for was intern. And I think at the time, like I was a project manager at a web development studio. So I was already getting into senior level staff. And I went there for the interview. And I remember stepping into the parking lot wearing a 2-piece suit. And these guys approached me from the other side of the parking lot wearing like sandals and t-shirts and shorts and piercings, and giving me the look that they should have been giving me, like, what the hell are you doing here? And even as I wandered the halls with them to get to the interview room, like everybody in the office was just like stopping what they were doing to look at me. And I later found out that some of those people were like, "Are we getting shut down? Like,
oh no,
is the lawyer here to finally shut us
no.
up?"
The lawyer should, like the taxman showed up.
Oh no, it's a consultant. Oh no.
Yeah. Well, he's got a suit and a briefcase. This can't be good.
When I started as an intern, it kind of had the ring of truth for me, because I started and they said, "Well, you got graduate degree in this area. You won't be interested." And I said, "I've been out of the military for 6 months. I'm interested in anything."
I'll take it.
I'll take it. But I also, I want to hear about the Blue Bottle thing. But before I forget, I wanted to thank you, and no matter how small part you had in it, for Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Mass Effect 3, because I enjoyed all 3 games immensely. So thank you for whatever part that you had in doing those. And now I want to hear about the Blue Bottle thing.
Well, hang on. I just want to issue a correction to something I said earlier. Turbine did not do the Matrix. I looked it up. It's confusing because Turbine eventually became WB Games Boston, and it was Warner Brothers who published the Matrix Online, but it wasn't Turbine.
Okay.
Back in 2002,
they were complicated.
Yeah, back in 2002, apparently they were doing Asheron's Call 2, which that was such a good MMO. It was so good.
Anyway, just drawing the things that were in those games would have kept me happy all day. So,
it was a beautiful
probably a good
game.
thing I didn't get the job though, because I don't think I would have been able to afford living on an intern salary in Boston.
Probably not. No. Anyway, please continue. I apologize. I just wanted to throw that correction in there.
So Blue Bottle Games. I'm trying to think if I actually had a good reason for choosing Blue Bottle, because I've had enough time with this name to sort of retrofit all kinds of explanations into it that I like. But I'm trying to put my brain back into that moment when I decided. I know for sure at that time I was big on a name that I could say to somebody in a loud, crowded bar and they wouldn't ask me to repeat it. Like one of my first websites was Kubrick.net. And I was thinking at the time, like, oh, copper is this really cool, like it has all these cool properties as a metal and as an element. And it's like, it's going to have meaning and it's going to be awesome. And every time I tried to tell somebody what my website was, they're like, Cupert? How do you spell that? Like, what does that even mean? And
Yeah,
like,
even I went like Kubrick, like the director.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
With a
Like,
B.
yeah, that's what I.
So lesson learned. Thankfully, that was my personal like resume website and not my first business. So it was important to me that it just be something you could say, and it's like immediately clear what I just said. And I also do remember wanting to feel like a late 90s RPG studio name. Black Isle Software, Looking Glass Software, Ion Storm. They all have this kind of vibe to their logo and their brand identity that I liked, and they made games I liked, and I wanted to kind of pay homage to that. So I remember I was having a conversation with one of the marketing directors at Modern Wolf, and he's like, you thought about updating that logo? It looks like it's something out of the 90s. I was like, that's exactly what it's supposed to look like.
That's great.
We're not changing
Yeah. Don't change it.
But
I really like it but in the Midwest here, the northern part of it, somebody says Blue Bottle, you think about the coffee, So
are they from the Midwest?
I know there's a lot of Blue Bottle coffee around here.
Okay.
I don't know if they started here or not, but I'm kind of a coffee enthusiast, so that's where my mind goes first. And I said, surely it's not the fly, but you never know because, I am acquainted with someone who's a professional game developer who started out as an ichthyologist. And I said, well, maybe you're an entomologist,
Nope. Believe it or not, I have actually had some legal dancing with Blue Bottle Coffee in the not too distant past.
Oh, really?
Mostly around trademark stuff, and exactly for the reason you just stated. Like they are similar sounding enough that people are like, I wonder if those are related. What ended up happening was they wanted to start doing like what do you call it? Transactional stuff like you would see at a Starbucks, or like gift cards or mobile app, rewards programs, that type of thing. So they wanted their mark to cover potentially like digital media. And at the time, Blue Bottle Games already had a mark which covered a significant portion of that same domain. So we had to basically chat back and forth about, okay, well, you carve out the space for you, I carve out a space for me. We'll make sure that we are very careful about not making it sound like we are in each other's spaces. And it kills me to this day that I probably should have been like, as a term of this agreement, would you mind sending me like a bag of your coffee every year? Just, more for the novelty of like, reminding myself that we had this
Lifetime Blue Coffee.
No,
Yeah,
they should have gotten into games publishing. Publish physical copies of the games in the coffee shops.
There you go.
Why not?
The only place you can buy Blue Bottle games.
God
is
damn it.
physically in one of their stores. Yeah.
Okay, one more tangent, and this is only because I'm curious.
That's fine.
Okay.
It looked to me like you had to take down your site because of a DDS attack. What happened?
Not DDS, but it was attacked in a manner of speaking. So I had a website since 2012, which I took down in 2021, somewhere around there. And the reason was that somebody had figured out how to install a script on the website. And as far as I could tell, that script was designed to send emails. So basically, they used my website as a host to send spam.
Crap, yeah.
The problem, like, that's already pretty bad, but the thing that really worried me was like somebody basically has a backdoor into my site. I don't know what that backdoor is, and either I drop everything and figure it out, or I shut down the site so nobody can access it. And so I went with the latter option, and I just really haven't had a chance to rebuild the site. I really don't want to rebuild the site for that matter. Like, I liked having a site, but I don't like managing, a content management system and database and all that stuff. So I may go with something a lot simpler in the future once I have time, but obviously Ostranauts has kept me pretty busy.
Just wonder what happened to it. That's all. The digger I deep, the more questions I find. So
Yeah.
I
do miss
deep eye.
the like I used to do blogging on that site. Like I started a long time ago on Google's whatever it's called now, Blogspot. And then I graduated to my own website, and I was like, well, now I'm doing my own business. I should write there. And I, for many years, every single day, at the end of the day, I'd spend half an hour, just like, here's what I did today. And I loved having that, both for me to go back to and like, what was I doing this day, or why did I make that decision? But also like sharing with other people, so that they can kind of see like behind the curtain. This is what it's like. Both the Blogspot and the Blue Bottle Games website were kind of in that spirit, because me going indie while I was at BioWare was largely fueled by me seeing behind other people's curtains, like how they made that jump, when they thought it was right to do it, what are the sort of pitfalls they had to avoid or fall into. So it's kind of my way of paying it forward. So it's a bit of a shame that I think archive.org might be the only place you can read a lot of that content now. But thank God for archive.org.
Oh my God.
Well,
Oh
just
my God.
wondered what happened to it, and I apologize for so many tangents.
No, it's
that's kind of
fine.
my thing.
No, it's fine. I donate to archive.org monthly because they're just when I found that someone put together a collection of Kmart cassettes from the 70s to the 2000s, so you can go back and listen to that music.
Oh, really?
And those ads, yeah. It's called Attention Kmart Shoppers, and you can listen to all like dozens of tapes from the 70s to the 90s. And it's like,
did you say this was commercials only, or does this include like the music they pumped?
This
in?
is like this includes the music. This is what they would play over the PA system in Kmart's. And like someone put that on. I'm like, okay, I have to make sure this doesn't go away.
I used to work at Kmart. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
This was like a high school job, but I was a cashier at Kmart for I think a year or two. I still have the vest. So
I'm gonna find that and post the link to it so you can listen. It might bring back some memories. It is, yeah. As soon as I found that, I'm like, oh my God, okay, I have to make sure this never goes away ever.
It must never die.
It must always exist. I'll find the link and post it in the chat because it's amazing.
Same idea, different time period. I discovered there's I want to say it's a YouTube channel, which is like just real-time recording of the Weather Channel from like the mid-90s. So it'll be like a half an hour of like middle of nowhere North America Weather Channel and the music that was playing at the time, which ended up being kind of the highlight for me. It's like, oh man, I forgot about that music. And so like now there's I think I even posted it recently. There's actually a website that will it will generate an honest to goodness weather report based on like NOAA and all these other websites for your current location, and then play snippets of the background music from the 90s over it, and then like style the website to look like the channel would. If I think of where I put the link for that, I'll share that too. But
so Ostranauts.
We do have
about that game.
We do have some questions from the chat. Oh God, where'd it go? I had it right here. First off, how many people are working on the game?
Currently, let's see, we have 6, I think, and they're contractors kind of sprinkled around the globe. I'm the westernmost one, and currently the easternmost one is in Austria. In the past, that number has varied from like 1 to, I'll say 3. Like this is the largest number of concurrent mostly full-time people working on the game. In the past, it was usually more like 1 to 3 full-time people. And then a host of people who've kind of come in and gone at various times. Everything from like hiring a consultant to do like a code analysis for me and just kind of like, hey, here are some suggestions for how you should restructure things. And that was just like a one-shot engagement. Or like I use a couple artists pretty regularly now for like if I need an illustration done, I'll go to this one artist. Sabina Lewis is currently the one doing a lot of our illustrations. Or like, pixel art or, any sort of materials like that. And Josh Culler did the soundtrack for Ostranauts almost before Ostranauts existed. I loved his work in Neo Scavenger, and he approached me on that. I had this sort of chintzy 3-note synthesizer thing I recorded as the main menu music. And he approached me, basically made a case for like, you need real music. I'll do it for you. And I was just so happy with the work that he did there that later on he's like, so you're working on a new game and do you want music for that? I was like, absolutely. Come and do the music.
That seems to happen so often when a developer like finds one musician and just uses them for all their games. Like,
I mean, if you think about like film too, right? Like,
yeah.
It's like pairings of people that kind of glom together.
Good musicians are both hard to. Good musicians, A, are hard to come by, and B, surprisingly really struggle to get to land a consistent job. So, it tends to work out.
Yeah. Like I think he's done Underrail that I'm aware of. Maybe DLC for Underrail as well. But I don't think he's actually done that many other games, and it surprises me. Like, I'm pretty sure he's got the availability. If you're a developer out there and you're looking for music a la Ostranauts or Neo Scavenger or Underrail, you should get in touch with Josh Culler. I think he goes by the handle Invisible Acropolis on a few of the websites like SoundCloud and stuff.
Does he have a Does he have a Bandcamp?
Probably. He's kind of come and gone from a bunch of different like SoundCloud, Bandcamp. I think he's got one of the albums somewhere else too. But yeah, like he has the availability to do work, and I would highly encourage anybody who's looking for his style, like, go for it, because he's also really easy to work with.
Apparently the man has made music for Underrail and the expansion and Neo Scavenger and now Ostranauts. That's it.
That's all. That surprises me because, I mean, I guess Neo Scavenger and Ostranauts and Underrail are probably not the most widely known games. So that could be part of it too. Like, you have to hear his music to know you want his music.
Right.
Arguably, yes. Though there is apparently a decent overlap of people playing two of them are made by the same person, but
yeah.
Even looking at the art styles, there's a theme going on there.
They're probably all just games he likes. he's got a certain kind of game he likes, and he probably just
I
seeks out
entirely respect that.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Speaking of, because I have actually want to ask, because I have primarily played a mountain of Neo Scavenger ever since it released. Oh goodness, 10 years ago.
Yes, it's been a while.
It has been a while, but yes, I enjoyed it dramatically, even if it was mostly stumbling around through the dark and dying of dysentery and getting eaten by dogs.
Metaphor for life.
Yes, metaphor for life.
Yeah, that I'd like to come back to Neo Scavenger. I've been thinking after Ostranauts is stably released in 1.0. I will probably revisit Neo Scavenger to do one of a few things. Maybe re-release Neo Scavenger in a more modern engine than Flash.
Right. Is that why that thing doesn't have resolution options, or has like 3 of them? Or
Well, that's partially my fault as a novice developer too. The biggest downside to that is the save game system uses flash cookies.
Oh, oh my!
Like they get obliterated in a stiff breeze by like all these other processes on a computer.
Oh no!
I remember the save files for that game are notoriously volatile, and also like
it was a cookie cleaner, or like sometimes even just your browser would be like, okay, you're done with cookies now, and it's like your save game's gone, even if you weren't playing the game. But then, yeah, I mean, Apple officially killed support for Flash, and then Adobe kind of just let it waste away within a year or two of that. So having another way to play the game that doesn't involve essentially loading a Flash player with Neo Scavenger injected into it, that would be nice. Go ahead.
I will have to admit, I still remember opening Ostranauts for the first time when I got the key from you. I went straight to the options menu to see how much it's improved, and I never thought I'd be shocked by the ability to like select a resolution. And
well, a lot of that I'd have to say comes for free. Like it uses Unity. It's getting old, the version of Unity we use now, because we kind of got the last perpetual license Unity offered before they switched to a subscription model.
So you don't get newer versions with that license? Right.
So we have like the long-term release fixes, which I think ended a few years ago as well. But part of this was, I'm in India. I don't have a huge budget for buying new versions of an engine all the time, but also like, from experience, using a new engine or switching to a new engine is always more complicated than it sounds. In many ways, some things become a lot easier with a new engine, but so many of the things you hadn't thought about get worse.
I mean, all due respect, it sounds like very complicated because switching to a new engine, as far as I'm concerned, means you're redoing the game. Like,
the one thing you don't have to redo is you've made all these decisions about the gameplay, but yeah, like hooking up all of the stuff behind the scenes, like you have to like graft all of these muscles to a new set of bones, so to speak.
One of the benefits to not only talking to a lot of developers but following them on Steam and Twitter and whatnot is you see a lot of them like, oh, we just switched to a new engine and it took forever. Like every one of them says basically the same thing. Like, sorry, our last update took 8 months. We updated to the latest version of Unity or Unreal or whatever. It's like, yeah, it sounds.
Well, that's redo the game from the ground up because the last update broke literally everything.
Yeah,
that is actually a big reason I haven't taken the jump into a more modern Unity is like the last version we used was actually pretty stable and it hasn't let us down in almost any way.
And it's good enough. And there's a greater than zero chance that switching to a more modern version will actually cause the game to explode.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially with all the recent Unity shenanigans that's been going on.
Well, so that's the other thing is last year with before the exit of Riccatello as their CEO, like I was just shaking in my head going, oh my God, there's no future in Unity now. Like, I don't know how anybody is going to look at Unity and go, yeah, I'm okay launching my next game, potentially having it downloaded by millions of people, getting charged for every one of those downloads. And that charge has nothing to do with how much they paid for it. Right? Like, the mind boggles at how that business model was formed.
It was such a horrible idea. It was a tremendously terrible idea, and I don't know if they're going to survive in the long run. Like I've already seen a lot of developers talking about like, oh, the next game I do is never going to be Unity. I'm going to Godot or something like that. Like I've seen a lot of developers like, I'm never using Unity again. Like once I finish this game, like never again. And
I think that's kind of where I am right now. Although I'm willing to kick that decision down the road a bit because the next game I do will probably be Neo Scavenger 1.5 or 2.0, and in both of those cases, it already has an engine. The one I used for mobile, which is Hacks. Hacks is kind of a neat little like meta compiling language. So you write the code in Hacks and then you deploy it to a C++ version or a C# version or like one that runs on iOS or whatever. Kind of like Java in some ways. But the difference is with Java, it's like, actually, I won't say anything about Java because I don't know a lot about Java. What I will say is it's creating machine specific code for each target. And that is fast enough. That is just as fast as anything else that I could write in. And the fact that NeoScavenger already works in that language on Android and iOS, rest in peace. I could do PC, like Linux or Mac versions of that game just at the press of a button for the most part, with a few idiosyncrasies aside. So I think I'd probably do my next game in Hacks as well, the next NeoScavenger game, meaning I probably have years before I have to tackle the question of will another game be done in Unity.
Right. That's fair. Maybe they'll turn it around. Who knows? I don't.
Maybe.
I think it's going to be very hard.
A small amount of optimism that they. I guess the thing that concerns me is that they haven't really changed the contract. They've just changed their posture around it, and the posture is like step 1, and step 2 is like put it in writing. But we'll see. If come 5 years from now, nobody has raised a horror story about being overcharged by Unity, maybe it's coast is clear, right?
Yeah, but will people take the risk? That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
Will people even take the risk on Unity anymore? Ugh.
Definitely not as many as before.
And when that stuff was going down, our Discord server was just a buzz because we have a lot of developers on our server, and everyone was like, "What are they doing? Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Tears into their beers, drinking their problems away.
Yeah. What I wanted like to know is Ostranauts currently feature complete, and you are only doing basically stuff to publish it, or are you implementing more features?
Well, funny you should ask. We're doing milestone 14 right now, and on our roadmap, the Steam webpage has like a link to our roadmap. We have basically 15 milestones planned as feature complete. Like at the end of 15, that'll probably be the last feature we add. And then we have like space reserved at the bottom for 16 plus. So the idea was 14, the one we're doing now, is going to finally let you fly to other planets officially rather than sort of hacking your way there. And we will add basically the level of depth you see around the starting area, K-Leg. You'll now find that in one other place in the solar system. And then all the others are kind of like placeholder they have services and facilities, but not like content built in them yet. So that'll be 14 when that comes out, which is hopefully in the next basically month. We're pretty much done with it now, and we're kind of doing the teething issues and polish at the end. So there's that. 15 is going to be the ship-to-ship combat and fire simulation stuff. So currently you can fight other people like with, swords or a crowbar or a pistol. And it can blow holes in your ships and all that kind of stuff. But if you wanted to shoot a ship that's not currently docked to you, you would have to wait for 15. And so that, I'm hoping, is not going to be as much of a duration in development as 14 was. It turns out 14 took way longer than we expected, largely because we added Venus as the place you can go. And Venus has an atmosphere, and the main stations there are aerostats. So like flying around in the atmosphere, the effects of like gravity or G forces as you accelerate. We had basically a super fast forward that we had to add to the game because 16 times fast forward is not going to get you to Venus. Like at the speeds you're flying, which are still incredibly fast by science standards, it'll still take you days, sometimes weeks to get to another planet. And we don't want the player to basically just be sitting there waiting. So super fast forward was like a way to, like when you go to sleep in Skyrim, you get like, how many hours would you like to wait? But we had to write code to simulate as much as possible during that jump forward and make sure it comes out the other end without killing you. Like there's that stuff. And then we thought, well, if we make a whole bunch of content around Venus, there's no guarantee that everybody's going to go to Venus. Like somebody's going to probably go to Mars. Somebody's going to be like, I'm going to see what's at Titan around Saturn. And so we said, all right, there needs to be like vestigial stuff at these other places that you can go in case you decide to go there. So we ended up adding like a cargo trading system, which is like a mini economy that's running. Certain stations make certain things and consume other things. And you can buy cargo pods to put on your ship, take that cargo to a place, play the market, buy and sell. And then we ended up adding racing as a feature around Venus, which initially is going to sound crazy. Like, why did you do that? But
it does.
I think one of the things I was going to say, one of the things about Ostranauts that I really like and that I think is an important part of the game, and the team told me this much, is designing and building a spaceship. Like, you're playing this game because you like designing and building spaceships. Many other reasons, but that's one of them. And giving you a new goal for like design a ship that is aerodynamic and will fly well in an atmosphere is like reliving all of that fun again. And we leverage that system just with some new content. So that was kind of like another thing we did. There's actually this place that you can do, which is already hinted at in the lore, like basically a Grand Prix that happens in the Venus aerostats. So yeah, there's a ton of new features still coming, I guess, to answer your distant in the past question. And they will continue until 15 milestone comes out.
So Sathnas in the chat has another question. Did you take any inspiration from objects in space? You built the navigation screen?
Oh, yeah. For a minute there, I was like, oxygen not included? No, but yeah, objects in space. I will say yes, although the game kind of predates, at least when I wanted to start making the game, it sort of predated objects in space. But I really liked how they leaned into the play through the scopes sort of vibe, which I noticed Microprose has kind of taken up that mantle lately too with some of their recent games.
Hi, Fleet.
And I'm very happy to see, hardware controls all over the place.
Yeah.
So like I did play Objects in Space, and after playing it, I was like, yes, there are things in here I really like, and I wish I could do these things too. I think they do some things which I'm trying to remember how like the mission / story stuff goes, because I didn't get too far into the story. And I remember thinking like, I did a lot of this story type stuff in Neo Scavenger, and it was, the more I did, the harder it became to maintain, and I want to kind of avoid getting stuck in that swamp. So I tried to make a lot of the stuff more procedural. That said, Corey, our writer, has still done a deep dive on a lot of sort of encounter screen style events. So there's still a lot of text in the game. I never avoided that in the end, but yeah, I will say that they share some DNA, and I did enjoy my time in Objects in Space.
That's awesome. Yeah,
That answers that.
I wish I'd liked Objects in Space more, but I have a whole issue with it.
I mean, I like
it.
I liked what was there,
Yeah,
and then there was no more of it.
that's another problem.
Yeah.
But that's a whole thing. Also, just a friendly, kick in the stomach to everyone. I just cracked open the Neo Scavenger wiki, and it mentions Desura.
Oh God,
Anyone still remember that?
Oh yes,
that's a name I've not heard in a long time.
I was just gonna say, where's the meme?
Oh my God, yeah, put up that Obi-Wan meme. Oh my God, wow, Desora.
Neo Scavenger leaned hard. Well, Blue Bottle as well leaned hard into supporting Desura back then.
They were a great service for a while. They were for a little while there, for 2 or 3 years. They were like a fantastic service.
I remember building a chunk of my website specifically to support their key system.
Oh, wow.
So that when you bought the game on Desura, you could get a Steam key and a local copy of the game at my website. So it was like it would recognize you bought the game on Desura, give you access to the game on my site, and then make sure you don't get to do that over and over again. And then Desura died. And then all of the people who were kind of left, hanging by Desura came asking for their Steam keys after that.
Oof.
Which thankfully it worked. Like,
that's good.
I didn't have to struggle too much there.
That's good.
But I don't look forward to the day where I bring my website back online and people are like, so about all those keys. And I was like, okay. Now there's the rubble of a website I have to sift through to find all that information. So.
Oh, no. Yeah, I remember really liking Desura for quite some time, and I was very sad when they shut down. They were a really great place for a while.
I don't remember why. Does anybody know why? Like, was it
they seemed
they
very
dropped more they could chew?
They why they shut down? Yeah, I think they tried stupidly to compete a little bit with Steam, kind of like GOG is doing, and you just can't. You just can't.
I think you could coexist with Steam.
You can coexist, yes.
But if you spend a lot of energy trying to dethrone Steam, you better. It's like they say, you come at the king, you best not miss. Right?
Exactly.
Electronic Arts failed.
Ubisoft failed.
Ubisoft failed.
Yep,
Jinx.
exactly.
If these Leviathans can't do it, who can?
Exactly.
The corpses of those Leviathans are outside the castle gates. You maybe don't want to storm them. So.
Yeah, like when there's actual dragon skeletons in front of the castle.
What is it they say? Read the room.
Yeah, read the room.
So I have a random question. I know, Dave, you have a question too. Do you want to get your question out first, David?
Yeah, sure. So when I was playing here today, I was just realizing that when I was sitting down there with a navigation console that, oh yeah, these controls remind me of something. So I need to ask you if you have played that game, as it is also top-down. Have you ever played Delta V, Rings of Saturn, whenever I've been working on this thing?
I have played it. It's kind of a similar story to Objects in Space. It came out after I started work on Ostranauts. So it didn't have a chance to really inform early ideas of Ostranauts. I wonder if there was anything. I remember thinking I really love the way they do their heads-up display with the kind of like cathode ray tube glowing lines effect. Like they do such a good job with that. And the other one that I remember thinking was, I love how they handle the laser being invisible, but like vaporizing the thing that you mine. So I think what I remember saying most often about the game was, I wish I had their VFX chops. Like they seem to have like a really good handle on making things, feel and look visceral.
Certainly.
Yeah,
I agree.
And the hardness of the setting, like the scientific attention to detail, I love that too.
Yes, but it's also far more zoomed in than Ostranauts, arguably, because you are in one ring on one planet.
Honestly, though, like Asteroids has got to be one of my favorite games, and like for Rings of Saturn to basically be a love letter to asteroids and all the things it could have been, like, hats off. Like that is definitely squarely in my wheelhouse. So.
Smash open rocks and you devour things that are in the rocks.
Yeah, it's perfectly natural.
What else do you want in life?
Right. My question is, what do I have to do to get you guys to make a printed manual for this thing?
Well,
because I will buy one, 100%, day one, no question.
Eva, me too.
So I
want to ask you a question related to that, though. I really wanted a PDF of this manual so I can take it down into the living room and struggle through it all because it's a lot.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because there is a PDF and I think you can get it in the game it's either on the main menu or when you're in the game. It is
on the main menu. I don't know if there's a separate file that you can access, and if there is, I haven't found it.
There is. You have to create a character, and then once you're like in the game itself, I think from the escape menu you can open the documents folder that has.
There'll be like a red book icon there.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and I think right below that it says "click here for the PDFs."
Okay, must have missed it. All right, thank you.
Yeah,
yes, you can print it out, punch some holes in it, buy yourself a red binder, and live the experience of poring over a manual.
And honestly, that might actually be helpful because that manual is very useful.
Yeah, turns out we have to rewrite parts of it for 14 now because of the torch drive and some new controls in the nav station.
All right, you're adding like proper reactor stuff. Oh boy.
Yeah, and then
go ahead, sir.
I was gonna say like the nav system has like the course plotting stuff. We have a throttle for the RCS controls. We have a separate throttle for your torch drive so that you can basically control how quickly you're accelerating and not smush yourself. And I think we're even putting a couple new things like station keeping or like a button that matches velocity to whatever you have targeted. So like Polaris nav station manual version 1.0 is expired and we're going to have to write a new one.
Fair enough. Though that is one thing I always found slightly odd is that the year of our Lord is the far future and you are operating your spaceship like it's the Sputnik. There's no automation whatsoever. Everything is manual. Like short of having to like pull levers to open valves to your RCS thrusters, you couldn't make the controls more analog.
Well, if there's one thing we've learned from modern day technology, it's that smart is a lie. And
true.
Yeah.
I don't trust the machine to make any decision.
Fair enough.
About the manuals, what threw me a bit is that some of them are PDFs and some of them are JPEGs. So that threw me off a little bit.
I think eventually all of them will be PDFs.
Oh, good. Okay,
I think what you will find is that the majority of them have a JPEG for use in-game and a PDF alongside it.
Oh, okay. That might have been where I got confused because I'm like, I just want the PDFs. What are all these JPEGs? Okay, I'll take another look. Oh, but you're going to rewrite it.
I think the PDF. We have no way of like showing a PDF in the game without probably buying some kind of plugin.
Right. But yeah, I would if you guys wanted to get like a spiral bound printed manual, like I would totally buy into that. Absolutely.
I would love to make merch for the game. There's so much in the game.
Oh yeah, they're
like all the branding and posters.
One thing I have noticed
that
this is shared between both this and Neo Scavenger. Everything has like had a brand name on it, like everything that wasn't crafted by the player.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. Well, for me anyway. Like if I want to get immersed in a world, everything has to kind of have an explanation behind it, right? Like this product exists. Who made this product? Why did they make it? What can it do? And like, I don't necessarily have to answer every single question for every single thing, but if you scratch the surface and there's a little bit of something underneath there, you're almost like satisfied. It's like, okay, some thought went into this. So yeah, I love I love making up brands, stupid jingles for commercials that'll never exist. Like that's a fun task in itself.
Well, that makes me wonder. There's so much going on in the game with not only with what you're doing, but all these brands you're talking about and all this other stuff. How do you keep track of all that? Do you have a Bible? Do you have flowcharts? Like, how do you keep track of everything so you don't step on your own feet?
Well, especially for the brands, there is a giant spreadsheet of like all of the brands that have been referenced in material are in that spreadsheet. And then any information we can add to that spreadsheet for a brand is also there. I think we have more documents than you can humanly read in like the Google Drive of all the documents for development. But thankfully, like the stuff that is player facing, like the entries that describe New Cal or Tharsis Landing, like those things are first class citizens in our document pile. And it's like, well, if we do anything, it has to jive with that because that's something players already know about the world. So in a sense, like the documents that we have released and shown to everybody, or the illustrations too, like this is now the Bible, this is now canon, and we have to make sure that everything else kind of lines up with that if we come out with something later. We do actually now have a wiki, which is not officially announced, but it's almost to the point where I think it's serviceable because we had to seed it with a bunch of information. We had a bunch of people help kind of seed it with information. But that wiki now includes a lot of the kind of setting information already. So if you're just interested in that, you can kind of get it outside the game. And then inside the game, your PDA can read data files. And a lot of the data about the world, you can kind of like Wikipedia dance through hyperlinks. And read, like something might mention K-Leg, and you'll see that K-Leg is one of the encounter choices you can make to read more about that. And then you don't have to have the file for K-Leg. It'll just take you to it's like your PDA has that information already built into it.
Got it. But you'd have to know as a character to look for it.
Right. Yeah. Our next milestone, the wiki button on the main menu will actually go to the wiki website, and you can actually just peruse that at your leisure outside the game.
Nice. And the Steam overlay is probably very helpful for that as well because of its web browser.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good sense for how many people play full screen versus windowed. Like, I am the type of gamer that I liked, excuse me, as F-18s fly over the house. The game window is usually full screen if I can choose it, but I'm happy to tab out and like read like metagaming stuff, depending on if it feels like something I should know or something that I need to look up. So I don't know how many people are like, Camp A that prefers to find everything out in game, or Camp B and they just like kind of doing meta analysis on the side.
I usually try and go with what the developer wants. Like if they want me to be reading stuff outside the game, I'm less of a fan of that, but I'll do it. But give me the option to run the game in a window so I can easily do that.
If you have to, you better be able to without trouble for sure.
Exactly. Or because so many games have problematic alt tab behavior. Just let me run in the window.
Like EVE Online is an example of a game where there are significant chunks of time where I can look away from what I'm doing to research something else. And I fondly remember like researching parts for a future ship build. Like if I got this afterburner, what kind of capacitor change would I need to support it? Like that was fun to me. Or like perusing market reports for different commodities. Like it felt like I could still be doing that in the world, like sitting with my feet up on the console of my spaceship, perusing a parts catalog, even though it was outside the game in a website.
Yeah, I totally get that. I did that all the time in EVE Online when I played it. I would like, okay, I'm going to be mining for a while. I'll check out this forum. I'll listen to this podcast, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. I had a radio station for a while. I don't know if you ever
Did they?
tried that, but
No, I didn't
it was
know
like,
that.
but I forget if it was in game or if it was like they had an MP3 player built into the game, right?
Yeah, you could play it in game, but it was also outside the game, so you can play it however you want. I used to.
Oh.
I played for 6 years before I got tired of being victimized.
Oh, yeah.
We all
I
get
used-
there.
I used to listen to the radio station in game all the time.
Did they kill the radio station like they kill everything else?
No, just the players.
That company loves to kill things. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I mean, to their credit, for them to still be around doing what they do.
One of the longest running space game franchises still going.
yeah,
like them and
Calling it a franchise
Well-
might be pushing it. It's one game and some side projects
they've had
that,
some other
that got
games
left in the
that
dust.
they've made some actual other games that no longer exist. I would still call it a franchise. You know, they had that PS3.
that's impressive
thing.
when the first game you make outlives multiple games you've released after the fact.
I know.
Oh, my take on this, though, is when I was playing this game and people like me who loved industry got tired of being victimized, they're called, they even had a little song with their in-house band, and they said, harden the F up, and I won't say what the F is. But you know what? Then they had to sell the company, and I said, who has to harden the F up now, baby? Who has to harden it up
Joke's on
now?
you.
Oh man. We're well over an hour here. We should probably start wrapping up. Have we talked about the game sufficiently? I hope we have. I mean, we've had a lot of tangents too, but it's been a fun chat. Daniel, are you?
I've enjoyed my time here chatting.
I feel like we have covered the game sufficiently. Do you? I mean, I hope you do because it's your game.
Well, I feel like if there's something you want to know about the game in its present form, like I'm sure that's information you can access. What we talked about a lot is stuff you couldn't find out.
Okay,
Yes, like
that's fair. That's fair. Okay, good.
And
the game is well documented. The game is supremely well documented, but its developmental history and all the external stuff and that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe we've covered sufficient.
Because we had a lot.
And
of
I would say like
tangents.
if there is one takeaway, just keep it in mind where the game is now and where it will be if you're deciding whether or not this is the game for you. So we are nearing the end of early access. There's 2 pretty significant milestones coming out: long range travel and ship to ship combat. So if you can basically picture everything that's in the game now plus those 2 things, you can kind of gauge, all right, this is eventually going to or not going to be the thing I want to play.
Right.
I got one more question.
Okay.
All right. First, I know it'll never be on Switch, but my question, that's my thing. But my question, though, is a possibility. Does it run on Steam Deck?
I have heard it does. One of the developers has a Steam Deck and they were for sure it runs. I think there is a website out there where people share like mappings, if I'm correct. Like control mappings. And I remember reading some posts there which are like, yep, runs fine. I use this mapping and I can play the game.
Okay.
So I think its current status is unofficially it does run, but we don't have like a really good control mapping for it yet.
Okay, so it's not like a verified stage yet. So.
No, I think Steam even gives it kind of like that middle badge, like not official but not fail. I wish I could remember the name of the website where I saw the people talking about it. It's not something I have because like I can't actually test it in my office because I don't have a Steam Deck.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Send it to us.
What's that?
Send it to us. Send it to Brian.
I don't have a Steam Deck.
Well, then post it on Discord.
I wish I did. We do have one more question from. I'm sorry, Sav Mass. I missed this question earlier. He was asking about the graphics for the walking sequences on station. He says they look very low res. And it makes it hard to figure out what you're interacting with. And he's wondering if there's any plan to update this. Sorry, Sad Mess. I missed that earlier. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Like I think that's a good question, and it's definitely come up a lot. Like we read the reviews, we read feedback in Discord, and definitely like I don't know what I'm looking at has been a common refrain for some people. Our latest version 14, when it comes out, will have at least one new trick applied to it, which we're thinking is going to help. Like we think it looks better, but the proof will be when it actually comes out. And it's an ambient occlusion pass on everything in the scene. So like as you're walking around, anything that's like a corner or like a seam or whatever in the world will now have like a dark kind of gradient or shadow right where that corner is. And it makes it a little bit easier to see like what's in the foreground versus what's in the background and where this object ends and the next one starts.
That sounds like
so we have that. Yeah. And it's a subtle difference where like you could kind of look at one and look at the other and not necessarily see the difference. Or not know what's different when you look at one and the other, but the other with the effect, it's like, oh, I can kind of more clearly tell what's going on there. So there's that. This won't solve the walking around thing, but we are actually working on higher res pixel art for things that you're holding in your hand in the paper doll screen. That's more of like I want to role play my character and see what they look like holding a crowbar that isn't like 10 pixels by 10 pixels blown up. Because we have like higher res for the EVA suits and things like that, but not the items in your hands. But that first thing I said, the ambient occlusion thing, take a look at it once the 14 release comes out and see if that solves the problem for you. Because I feel like if that doesn't do it, probably we're not going to fix it.
That's fair. There's so much going on. It's got to be one of those things. It's like, it sounds like one of those consistent problems that's probably kind of tough to solve. And
it's a little bit as like me shooting myself in the foot or hamstringing myself. Like I specifically chose to make the game straight top down, not isometric, which already makes it hard for you to tell what's going on. But part of the reason for that was I didn't want to draw every angle of every object. I just wanted to draw one version of every object. And for modders too, like if you wanted to mod the game, you only have to draw the wall. You don't have to draw the wall from the north, the south, the east, the west. So that was a little bit of a trade-off that I decided early on. And then the resolution is kind of related to that. It's like a tile is 16 by 16 pixels. I could have made it 32, and we actually have some really great mock-ups of what the game could have looked like at a tile size like that. And I think anybody would have agreed it looked better. However, making everything twice the dimensions that it is now is 4 times the work.
Oh God.
So it's like, again, if I had to draw every one of these things at those higher resolutions, it would have taken me a lot longer. I would have had to pay somebody a lot more, or, if you're a modder, similarly, it would have been harder to make these things. So
well, I think you're figuring
again, you don't have infinite money. You needed to cut some corners that you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are so far over our schedule anyway on the game that, it's hard to imagine if it was even longer.
And top down, I think, works really well for a lot of games. I mean, look at Teleglitch, for example. That's like one of those games that's just so evocative and beautiful.
Yeah, and I think
and your game looks to me similar to Teleglitch in a lot of ways.
Especially with that line of sight stuff and the lighting.
Yes, exactly.
We use a similar trick, I think, for the lighting and the shadow kind of columns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I think it was Jesse Schell as a game designer who wrote about the idea of opera glasses, and I use this a lot when I describe kind of what we're trying to do. We give you a higher res representation of a lot of things, not necessarily everything, whether it's like the equipment you're wearing on your body, or like an illustration that you see in an encounter. It's like, this is what it would look like at, a higher detail. But then everywhere in the game, there's a lower res version of it. And you just kind of remember back to that image you saw, like, oh, that's what it looks like in person, but I'm just seeing like bird's eye view of this at lower detail. And I guess for some people, it probably works better than others. Like I'm just as guilty of like playing a game going, I wish I could just see this in full detail now. And I love my immersive sims for that reason, Cyberpunk and, like I've been playing Icarus lately, and it's like, this looks a heck of a lot better than Minecraft, and I enjoy it. But I also enjoy looking at Minecraft and being like, I know that's a tree. It maybe doesn't look exactly like a tree, but it represents a tree, and that's all I need to remember.
Right.
This makes me think back to something from the 90s, what you just described here, with some high-res graphics sprinkled in, like during conversation and stuff. And that's the pre-rendered cutscenes in many games in the 90s on the PlayStation.
Yeah, or even like...
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say Fallout was a game that did that. It was 97. So everything was isometric pixels, maybe 32 pixel high characters, whatever they were, but they were low res. But then if you talk to a guy, the face would be like covering maybe a third or a quarter of the screen, and their expressions would change. And it's like for that brief moment, you can see like in ultra detail, this is what the scene looks like. And then you step away from it again and characters walk around. That's not what you were talking about, but another example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, does anyone else have any questions, or should we start wrapping this thing up?
I just want to again thank our host for some of his work on some of my favorite games. So
I will also pass that off to any of those teammates I worked with the next time I see them, because
please,
awesome.
do.
It does feel a little bit like a moment in time produced those games, and I wonder if they could be made again, because they were
Dragon Age Origin is a great game.
It would be tough.
Yeah,
it'd be tough. They like some games are lightning in a bottle, and it's really hard. It's really hard to recapture that. Look how many people have tried to recapture Master of Orion 2, for example. It's like, nah, just stop.
It's weird. It's like you think the same formula would work again, but
nope.
Yeah, but like,
nope.
I mean, remember Master of Orion 3? If you don't, good. So it's not like the people that made a damn thing can recapture it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, good example.
All right. Well, friends, I want to thank you for listening. Very active chat today. Thank you very much in the chat for your questions and for your chatter. It's always great to see y'all. Next week, we're going to try and redo a check-in that we tried to do a couple weeks ago until I had a blue screen to death. So we're going to retry and do that. We're going to try and redo that next week. And tomorrow, we're back with more Euro Truck Sim 2. Daniel, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us about your game. The game is Ostranauts. I keep wanting to say Ostranauts. I don't know why. Ostranauts. And it is currently...
Thank you for having me on today. Like, it's been a super pleasure talking to you guys, and I enjoyed voyaging on all of these tangents with you.
Oh, God. It was a very tangent-rific podcast, but it was a really fun one. So yeah, the game is Ostranauts. Oh my God. How do I do that? Ostranauts is currently in early access on Steam. It is mostly feature complete already. You can play. There's a ton of stuff to do in that game already. But I know a lot of people have an aversion to early access. I get that too. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Be safe, be well, take care of each other. Please, for the love of God, get your damn vaccines if you haven't already. Get your shots. Wear your masks. We're still in a pandemic, for God's sakes. Thank you, as always, to our patrons that help pay for things like Restream so we can all chat to each other. And